Well, ladies and gentlemen, the files and all them photographs are on my desk. You remember when Pam Bondi told everybody about how horribly disgusting the thousands of photographs and videos and that the files were on her desk? Yeah, everybody remembers that, Pam Bondi. But were you on LSD that day, or were you just lying to everybody, or have you got your story straight? Yes, Miss Attorney General of the United States? Now let's move along here, ladies and gentlemen, to my favorite subject, the thousands of leaching septic tanks on Lake George, New York. That's an interesting subject matter there. Last report I had there, they fixed about 1,000. They fixed or repaired or rebuilt or something, about 1,000 of those septic tanks that were draining into the lake on the bedrock. Which brings me to, a pretty simple question. Why would they fix 1,000 septic tanks if something wasn't wrong? Why would David Wick be doing the wintertime flush, the wintertime drawdown, dumping all that water out of Lake George into the Lachute River? The Poop Chute River. I mean, come on, Dave Wick, you do wintertime drawdown. Isn't that called a dilution is a solution to pollution? Come on, wintertime drawdown, flushing Lake George, Dave Wick. And that goes to the county attorney and the district attorney and the county supervisors of Warren County, New York, and all them political creatures over there at Queensbury and Washington County and Essex County. If you're doing the drawdown through the pinhole in the bathtub, Dave Wick, Lake George Park Commission, Lake George Association, let's talk about that pinhole in the bathtub. And Dam 230, Dam A, the upper privilege that they use to flush, and then pond. They like to pond back water so that they can flush it. Dave Wick, Roger Smith. Boy, I tell you what, Kevin Garrity of Warrensburg, New York, the supervisor for Warren County, New York. Flush. Ain't that correct, Kevin Garrity? I call him Mr. Warrensburg. So, ladies and gentlemen, there's this couple of banks up there that have been financing the rebuilding of all those septic systems that drain into Lake George. Which brings me to my point. I'm kind of thinking I've had the story correct all along. I mean, why the hell fix something that ain't broke, right? Why in the hell Tom West, the attorney for the Fund for Lake George, why in the hell fix something if it ain't broke? Kathy Bozzoni, Darren Freshwater Institute, come on, Rensselaer Polytechnical Institute, why in the hell would they fix something that ain't broke? Flushing the lake through the pinhole in the bathtub. Ladies and gentlemen, my stories of the flooded Lake George, New York, how they raised the water level 8 feet. You take out that dam, remove the dam, and how far will the lake level drop? Governor Kathy Hochul, Attorney General Letitia James, you remove Dam 230, Dam A, and how far will the lake level on Lake George drop? Maybe you can ask the Director of Environmental Conservation, and you can ask, the Army Corps of Engineers, and maybe ask Andy Cuomo, Basil Sagos. Come on, ladies and gentlemen. The Lake George Association should be able to answer this one. This is a simple question, sort of like the pinhole in the bathtub, flushing all that sewage down the Lachute, the Poop Chute River into Lake Champlain, They dump it all into Lake Champlain, and then it goes out the Richelieu River up to the St. Lawrence Seaway, and then they flush all this septic tank crap all the way to the Gulf of St. Lawrence and the Atlantic Ocean. Hello? That's where Lake George gets flushed to during the wintertime drawdown. Hell, just ask Roger Smith and Dave Wick. And ask the Billy Mason, ask the Masons in the Lake George Association. And, I don't know, ask Supervisor John Stroh. Yeah, ask John Stroh and all them other political creatures from Assembly Point. And let's see, that's Dan Steck. Dan Steck's boy there. Let's see, Steve McLaughlin. He's got a place over on the Pilot Knob Road. And ask all the McLaughlins, ask all the Philos, and you can ask the Lake George Land Conservancy there in Bolton Landing, New York. And ask one of my good friends up there, old Frank Passaro. Frank Passaro, I'll tell you in a heartbeat. They flush. They've been flushing Lake George with that wintertime drawdown for decades and decades and decades. You have any problems with this, get a hold of the appellate court judges for the 4th Circuit Court of Appeals in Virginia, U.S. 4th Circuit Court of Appeals. I guess they're in Charlotte or Richmond. I forget where they're at. And ask them federal district judges down in Wake County in Raleigh, North Carolina about the fantastical story of how all the Glens Falls banks are repairing all those septic systems. And Jesus, just pick up the phone and call Bob Blaze, the old mayor of Lake George. Call Mr. Blaze up and call Mr. I guess it's Vincent Crasito. He owns the Holiday Inn up there on the Luzerne Road, the Holiday Inn, Vincent Crasito, and ask him about the brand spanking new sewage treatment plant that they had to build because they were dumping so much sewage into Lake George there by the Lac du Saint-Sacrement and the Minnehaha. And Hall's Pink Roof Miniature Golf Course, soft serve ice cream. Right there, come on, right there by the Charlie Wood Performance Park there, right there. I guess they call that East Brook. Might be called Westbrook, but I think it's Eastbrook. Where they built the David Decker swamp. Why would you build a David Decker sewage treatment swamp if there wasn't a problem, Lake George, New York? Come on, Department of Environmental Conservation, Ray Brook, New York. Admit it. Tell the world how the old swamp fox, old Judson Witham's been telling the true, correct, bona fide, corroborated story for decades. Let's get real, New York State, and start talking about, the files are on my desk. Like all those investigative files they had at 50 Wolf Road in Colony on my parents. Why in the hell would I even know about 50 Wolf Road in Colony and all the investigative files they had on my parents? Ask yourself a question. How would I know about those files, those investigation dossiers on all those landowners in the Adirondacks? Why in the hell would I know about that? Ladies and gentlemen, as always, hasta la vista. God bless, and you can bet you we're coming back.